Welcome to the ScreenMDM Talks podcast hosted by me, Mancha Daswani. This week our sponsor is MD Media Biz. Hello, our Format Zone episode of ScreenMDM Talks today features the wonderful, delightful André Renaud, General VP of Format and Finish Sales at Warner Brothers International Television Production and co-chair of the Frappa Board. Hi, André.
Oof, that sounds like a mouthful. Yes, hi. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you. We did this last year when I was somewhere else, but
Yep.
managed
And me
to
too. I was
so fun.
no, I love getting time with you, Mancha. I'm really, really happy to be here. Really happy to have a good chat with you too. So thank you for thinking of me.
So I have to thank you and I think the entire Warner Brothers team for taking up so much of my life with 24 on 24 or whatever that show is called. Good Lord. I binge watched 2.5 seasons in the
Yep.
space of about 4 days.
Isn't it great?
Oh my goodness.
It's so much fun. It's such a great way to use talent. And honestly, I mean, we'll probably talk about sort of risk aversion and how to do stuff. But like, where else can you have an entire series of television that's filmed in one day?
Indeed. And it's so compelling.
Yeah, it's I'm a big fan of it, and it's a really, really great way to be able to get more people engaged on it. My favorite thing, like if you go all the way back, I don't want to do spoilers, but season 1 had a lot of really excellent big names and a couple of home cooks who are trying it out.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing is that right at the beginning, you have a really huge thing where basically people get humbled quickly. That's what I'll say.
I know.
People get humbled very quickly.
Very.
I think that's what makes it so compelling. I love watching cooking. I love watching it in any form. But I will say after a long, hard day of watching TV, I love nothing more than going home and watching TV, and something like 24 and 24 is the one for me. The other thing is really good format because it gets a chance to have fun. Like there's moments where we're going to go, actually, we're just going to kind of play with you for a bit. And when people are exhausted, that's the last thing they want,
I know. It is diabolical. Some of those challenges are diabolical. I love it. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get back to that format later, but I know you were at Content Europe.
I was.
A lot of format executives. That was a really significant event.
Yep.
So I'm just coming out of that. If you could just do like a temp check for me on sort of how the entertainment, the non-scripted formats business is feeling right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, firstly, I really valued Content Europe as a new market, for the record. I mean, the best discussions were the ones that I had spontaneously, running into somebody, haven't seen them for a while, sitting and having a coffee, and just hearing about the challenges and the opportunities. I think I went into Content Europe wondering about the direction of the industry, and I left feeling quite revitalized about it. On entertainment formats specifically, it's probably the most fascinating time for it. Huge, long-running brands remain the name of the game for commissioners, and people are reluctant to pull them off and try something new because the hit rate benchmarks are so much higher now for entertainment. Like you have to really have a good, cost-effective production, and you have to get really high ratings when we're working on a declining linear base, right? I would say probably the Netherlands is the biggest creative hub still for trying stuff out. And you can see that from launches that places like Talpa and ITV Studios and others are doing. But it is a fact that entertainment format sales have been declining year on year in favor of things like reality. And I suppose what I'd say, though, is that reality is a really broad genre as well, because inside there you could have The Traders or you could have Real Housewives. So it depends on how you define entertainment, I guess. Now, do we have to redefine entertainment?
It's a good question.
I don't know. Or how do we perceive entertainment today? I don't think maybe the pieces work in the same way. Look, all of the big juggernauts still remain, but people have less money to put into places. So they're going to try and put it into their things that are either cheaper to make, but still returnable. So reality and game shows are probably where I think people are pivoting to, but trying to find entertaining ways to do it.
Sure.
Yeah? I don't know.
No, I think there's some I thought that MasterChef Mexico 24/7 on Disney Plus and on TBS. I thought that was it's a really interesting model. And I think 24/7 formats are really, I think they're fascinating.
Well, isn't it funny though? Because aren't we just going back to the early 2000s when digital took off and Big Brother had a live feed on E4, but was airing on Channel 4? Like we've essentially there's nothing new, I suppose, in the world. but we're finding new ways of reaching. And so I agree with you. I think the MasterChef thing's interesting, but Latin America's always been a region where people want to consume quite a lot of content. I
Yes.
mean, Argentina's always had a daily version of that for years and years and years now. So I can see how it would work there. We're also, I think, because we're moving from our TVs to our laptops to our phones or tablets, right? We want something that follows us around as we go. So maybe that is
Yeah.
also something that just keeps the momentum building.
Now I remember when we spoke last year, you had this absolute obsession with, I think it was Glow Up.
Oh yeah, still obsessed with Glow Up.
I love that.
Yeah,
But you were talking about it as a really good example of a show that had sort of an instant connection to influencers, to that
yep,
social video space.
yep,
And I'm just curious, as you're talking to partners about potential rollouts,
yep.
do you talk to them about like, well, this is how you could leverage this on TikTok or YouTube to try to expand its reach?
Yeah. So the shape of the conversations that we have are a lot more 360 than they used to be.
Yes.
And it's especially relevant in the last year. So like the approach on a conversation around glow up is exactly as you say. Beauty is one of the most highest value return, revenue return on TikTok and YouTube. So how are you saying, look, that's the reach that you cross over when linear broadcasters are talking about their loss of younger viewership or not even finding younger viewership? What is the way to do it? Well, you bring in the talent that's there and you then trade that off by saying to your influencer or to your makeup company or whatever, look, you're also expanding your reach into another audience too, and finding
Yeah.
another group there. So it's 100% the type of conversation we're having. It also helps with commercial modeling too, right?
Of
So say that I can find a big department store chain or beauty brand who are trying to expand their reach in a country. Maybe this is the way for them to do that, and also then make better trades for spot advertising.
For sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I think the one thing that I found tricky about the social video connections, I've seen reality shows, entertainment shows
yeah,
bring in influencers for on screen,
yep,
and sometimes that can feel incredibly inauthentic.
yeah, yeah.
It's just I think you need an artful producer to get that to work right, to make sure that those people who are big on YouTube can actually translate to your regular television broadcaster.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's why producers really do exist, and editorial content's still number one, at least in my perspective of it. But one thing I'm finding more interesting is the flip side of this is that YouTube creators are now doing slower, longer form content. So in
Yes,
effect, they're actually making TV now.
they
So
are.
probably over the next year or so, we'll see that they're getting better and better at being able to be more, I guess, telegenic's not the word I mean, but sort of teleliterate is
Mm.
probably what I'm trying to say in a way of understanding what that looks like. But 100%, you can't just throw in someone for the sake of it. I think ultimately what you need to say is, are they the right fit for it? And really spending a long time with them and to try and make sure that they're confident and comfortable making a different type of TV. When I was an actor, when
Wait,
I was
you
an
were
actor,
an actor?
massively successful one. That's why I work in media licensing now. So well, when I was an actor, one of the things that we were taught was different ways of acting for depending on what you were doing. If you're acting for the stage, it has to be bigger and you have to reach the back row.
Yes.
But when you're acting for television, it has to be very compact and very, very small. Like
Mm.
it's the same type of training that's required for anyone, especially people who might be host presenters or even talent inside a program.
No, that's interesting. Now, obviously, we've referenced a little bit of sort of risk aversion and the big formats still dominating a lot of schedule. How do you deal with that risk aversion when you have your own stable of returning brands that you want to keep on broadcasters?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to do both. We have to make sure that everything still stays on and then gets more stuff going as well at the same
Yeah.
time. We're all in the same boat. You know, my favorite thing I heard from somebody a couple of years ago was that commissioners are looking for cheap entertainment. They said, I want the Masked Singer, but I want it on Come Dine With Me budgets. And you're just like, yeah, great. All of us do. Um, but what I think it's done, and when I go back to the philosophy that creativity thrives in limitations, it's helped us rethink a few things. One is we talked a little bit earlier about genre expansion or redefining what a genre is. How do you make something entertaining for cheaper? 24 and 24 you talked about. But I also look to, for example, Nation's Dumbest and how that's traveling
Yeah.
as a big entertainment show that also it has really good economies of scale. For
Mm,
us, that's a show called Class Clowns that's been developed for the ABC in Australia.
mm,
You know, you can create entertainment, but make it comedic, bring in talent, you know, try and find a way to do something that doesn't feel like it requires, you know, a huge studio setting and you know, live television.
mm,
And I guess the other thing I'd say is that people are being really thoughtful about where they're looking for it. One of the conversations that we had at Content Europe on our FRAPPA panel was around unusual ways and paths to things finding success. And I'm always impressed around the ATOX, for example, which I would describe as entertaining factual but not factual entertainment. I mean, this is
yeah.
where we're getting into blurring, or
Yeah.
social factual, perhaps, or social entertainment. I don't know. Maybe we're gonna have to coin some things. I'll trademark them after this before this goes out, so that people can't steal them. Um, but like, I think people are also finding that that conversation is now part of every day. I've always said television should reflect sort of the opposite of what the world's giving us at the moment because we want it to be an escape, right? It's really powerful to see how a show like the ATOX that you would expect to travel to Nordics and Benelux has made it to Spain,
Yeah.
you know, has made it to markets that perhaps aren't traditionally the places that you would find this type of conversation. And I think that's
Mm,
really interesting. You know,
yeah.
for us, that was Inside Therapy, which we made for the BBC going to France, or even like Cash or Trash, which is like a huge format in our stable, does really, really well for us. I mean, in the UK, it's The Bidding Room with Nigel Havers. I think what people are saying is they're being more thoughtful now in a risk averse world about what they're investing in. But I think the green shoots on that is how we explore what the genre definition is. The viewership is still there for content. So I think we can try and expand it a little bit. Maybe how do you use your talent? Maybe it's about where you spend your money. You can still make big shows and still try new big shows, but maybe we're working a little bit more in the edges.
Now, the other thing we talked about briefly last year was scripted
Yep.
format.
Yep.
You said you were sort of starting to look at that.
Yep.
In the last year, how has that journey been for you? I know the scripted space in general has had its own
Yep.
significant challenges over the
Yep.
last few years.
Yeah, it's been slower perhaps than I'd love, but it's the same challenge, right? The appetite is still there, but cost versus viewership versus competition is the metric.
Yeah.
I still maintain that a scripted format is the fastest, cheapest way to develop a drama and get it on screen. It
Yeah.
is, like, it
Yeah.
is. There's no question about that, and you can have a brand new drama in months, not years. Because things are becoming more expensive, people
Mm,
have pivoted a lot of scripted slots into reality.
mm,
So, there's fewer scripted slots. There's still a lot of acquired content that you can get from, the US or the UK or elsewhere that fill
yeah.
those slots also cheaply. Um, I still believe, and you can see it through how shows travel, and you can even see it when you start looking at local ratings and stuff. A local drama will always outpace an acquired one,
Sure.
uh, but the cost of energy of putting that together is really hard. For us, the 12 still remains a really good success story. You know, 3 seasons in Australia
Wow.
with Sam Neill. What we have to really try and push through is be really targeted about where the appetite for drama remains as far as scripted formats is concerned. We look at Turkey or we look at South Korea or India even as
Mm,
places where there still is a strong appetite for drama, and the appetite, the demand from viewership outweighs sort of the pace at which people can deliver.
yeah.
So that's probably where we look at pivoting scripted format content. But like, I'm still desperate to see a remake of Footballers' Wives. I think it'd be amazing, or a format of it, or even there's a Belgian drama that I really love that we have in our stable called Double Life. I think these are the compelling stories. I think we have to be more thoughtful about what scripted
Yeah.
formats look like. It's
Yeah.
taking longer, but the appetite's still there, and I still maintain, you know, fastest, cheapest way, friends.
Yeah. No, that, yeah. No,
You
just
can't take your
in terms
salesman out of me. I'm sorry,
of
even if you want to.
I love it. That's why you're good at your job, Andre.
Appreciate that.
Oh, keep it going. Um, no, I want just in terms of you have this tremendous catalog. You've got so much in there. What's really resonating with your clients right now? You know, you come out of it was a busy start of the year between London TV screenings and Content Europe and everything else going on in the world. There's
Yep.
a lot. What's really picking up traction for you with your clients right now?
From a format's point of view, the key brands are still high on the agenda. You know, Bachelor, First Dates, Reality Queens, The Jungle from our Dutch production company now has had versions in Poland and India.
Yeah.
We launched the final circle at MIPCOM in October. Second season just aired in France. It was still the highest rated game show launch of that year.
Huh.
We've got interest coming through on that. Uh, and as I said, even some of those, I guess, what did we land on? Entertaining format, social format. That conversation keeps picking up. Um, Going on that piece around risk aversion as well, we've seen The Wheel having a lot more interest. So it just got announced that it's coming back in Spain after a 3-year hiatus. We're lucky to have such a wide genre of content for people.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested in seeing how, could a reboot of Celebrity Splash come back somewhere? It was on Romania for, I don't know, 10 seasons or so. But I also think you could explore what something like Hello Goodbye could be really, really lovely, touching, format just about the relationships that are formed as we enter or depart at airports. So like the conversations that I've been having with people have been around things like that, and it just sits in the same genre categories that I've mentioned.
There's a lot going on in Spain. I've been writing about format adaptations in Spain a lot lately.
Yeah.
What's your sense of what's driving that?
The market is deeply competitive. Deeply competitive.
Yeah.
And I would say that Atres and Mediaset have always had a really, really strong competition. But over the last few years, the public broadcasters always has also put a lot of energy into wanting to make sure that they are also part of the conversation in there. I think Spanish audiences are actually really discerning.
Mm.
I think that they're keen on having a lot of new and fresh ideas to work with. But I also think that it's just a really vibrant market at the moment. Some of that's also about the partnerships that the broadcasters have with, your Amazons and Netflix in the world. They're all really strong too. They have a really, really, vibrant cable network. I think it's just competition is high because there's a really vibrant group of commissioners and an appetite for it. If you
Mm.
look at even when you look at the autonomous broadcasters, they're commissioning local content too now, and perhaps it's just the competition is high. They want to make sure they have good eyeballs on their networks, but ultimately, really creative market, and truthfully, always has been. Um, Also in the drama sphere, also in the scripted sphere, they've had really, really great storytelling that's come through for years. So, I mean, long may it continue.
Now, I thought we could wrap with you having your Frappa hat on.
Yeah.
Um, what's going on? Tell me what you're up to? What you and Nick, the lovely Nick Smith, are up to at Frappa?
Yeah, look, I will start with the Frappa plug, which is that Frappa is a not-for-profit that exists to promote and protect IP creators. Our membership consists of big global companies and everything to independent creators with an idea. So now that we're 25 years old, Nick and I took on the mantle from Phil Gurin and Jan Saling at the end of last year. Over the last 6 months or so, we've been working closely with our advisory board on trying to understand what the big issues are for the industry beyond what we all know and assume, and also then engaging with our membership and trying to find new ways of speaking out to the industry through events like MIP London or Content
Yeah.
Europe. And I say like the biggest discussions we've currently had have been around AI, have been about how to stay creative and relevant, how to find alternative paths to commissioning. You can take your content to a commissioner in your country, but sometimes there's value in wanting to talk to a Banijay or a Fremantle. Or maybe you're saying, I want to do the opposite. I'm going to try and do it all on my own as a small independent. In Content Europe, we talked about exploring some of the unexpected paths to shows that got commissioned and how they traveled. So what we're trying to do is sort of fill that piece of a little more behind the curtain, a little bit more behind the scenes to try and give our membership and also the industry alternative ways of thinking creatively. But the other thing that Frappa continues to do, and Frappa's sole major responsibility, I should say, is around format protection and IP protection. We spoke recently about Fruit Love Island, for example, and one of the things that we've said is sort of where is the line between parody and ripping off?
Yeah.
You know, the thing about that's interesting about Fruit Love Island is that it shows that formats still have a strong, relevant place in the world. Like if you want to parody it, it must be important, right? So
Sure.
there's still huge value there. But there's still an urgent discussion needed on how to support and protect the huge amount of time and money that goes into developing a show that becomes a hit. I mentioned it earlier. The music industry's found their way through, for example, and we need to do the same. So what we're wanting FRAPA to build and grow from the work over the last 25 years is to say, can we coalesce what the industry's concerns are? Can we
Mm.
define what we believe the perspective is of that? Can we work with industry bodies to be able to try and support advocacy for supporting IP creators and holders? And can we also find a way to continue to move it around the world? But more importantly, can we also just find a community space for us to have fun, right? Be able to really come together, really enjoy each other's company, to be able to share ideas in a supportive way, um, and make sure that we're also a global organization. We're really lucky to have members from, for example, South Korea, Japan. Can we continue to grow that out? Latin America. How do we make sure that we're fully representative of the global format community? It's something Nick and I are really, really passionate about, and want to make sure that we're protecting the legacy of FRAPA and building it for the next 25 years. We want to make sure we get it right. We talked about relaunching our newsletter, which we're going to start doing over the summer, and hoping that we can find a way that could be a lot more community driven,
Yeah.
and more relevant and engaging as well. So
Sure.
if anyone wants to know more, please go to frappa.org.
No, I love it. I love this. I think we are seeing sort of a new sense of cooperation and collaboration amongst people who would not normally in the past have worked together.
I think this is a really interesting thing. I think we have to be a lot more thoughtful generally about who are our competitors, who really are our competitors or your competitors. And I've had really interesting conversations, both with Frap and also in my day job around this, because people are saying I only have a third of my budget, and you're going, okay, well look, but what if I manage to get that second window, these people to come in,
Yeah.
or how do we, or maybe there's an investor that we can get in this way, or maybe we could find a way. People are becoming a lot more flexible. I think we have to. Otherwise, what's the point, right? You know, Otherwise we just allow ourselves to to try and fight out and to the best person wins. But what loses out on that is creativity, and what really loses out on that is audiences. They won't be able to get the best. What does that mean? I think is the thing we have to explore. But honestly,
Yeah.
we have to be a lot more flexible together. And being pragmatic and saying, look, this is important to me. This is important to me. The rest is less important. What's important to you? Okay, if we agree with this, then I think we found a shape.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I just want to wrap one last thing that stuck with me from the conversation you and I had last year about how to define success.
Yes.
And this has been something obviously that's been in my mind since I started this business out of thin air
Yep.
7 months ago. Like what my benchmarks are, what tells me that I'm doing well.
Yep.
And within the context of the format business, as you mentioned, getting to the top rankings of the giants is difficult.
Yep.
So, what are your key metrics for success in this hot mess of a landscape right now?
A commission. A commission? I always talk about approaching my work, and perhaps maybe I should say life, but work with energy, bravery, and pride.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that I sit at the end of the day and go, was I energetic and was I brave? But like, I want to make sure that I'm having fun doing what I do. Have I been passionate about what it is that we're doing? Have I really tried to push boundaries with myself? Have I found the right challenges in there? Truthfully, sometimes that's also a really good win, because we could be really bogged down by stress. This is also life, right? About how our life and our work coalesce and they combine. And, right after this, I probably have to get off the call and be like, okay, what am I making for lunch or whatever, right? Like these things just all blend in together now, that we have to be thoughtful about what satisfying benchmarks are. And perhaps as I'm getting older, I also just think about being happy as the thing that makes it a win. So I guess I'd boil this down to say if I'm defining success today, besides obviously commission, partnership,
Mm.
thinking honestly about who or what competition is, looking how to work together, like problem solving without any BS.
Mm.
I think to me is success,
Yeah.
and making sure we have fun as much as possible on the way.
Well, those are good words to end on, Andre. That was awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It was so good seeing you.
Yeah, and you. I'm so grateful for the time.
Running past each other, but actually having a conversation.
Just
Imagine.
a hug and a wave as we run to the next thing.
Thanks for listening to the ScreenMDM Talks podcast, hosted by me, Mantra Daswani. Kate Roach is our VP of Global Ad Sales and Business Development. Production was done by Anand Patel. Musical score performed and composed by Jahan Raymond.